Okay, this is now tarot lesson number 40, 40. And I've got a blue cover here, a blue background, because I'm using a large size version of the Rider deck. Because today, over the years, I've wondered about what... You're probably familiar with the Fool's journey, where you take the Fool and you take and follow his or her progress through the major trumps. And ages ago, I thought it'd be nice to do the Hermit's journey, and that's what we're going to do today. That's what I'm going to try to do today, because I've thought it through once, and when I was thinking it through once, like an hour ago, it all made sense. And you may recognize this as well, because you know that you know what cards mean or what they represent, but you can't always put it together in the moment when you're doing a reading. So this may be a bit like that, where we all know what we're talking about, but it can be difficult to come up with the idea or to put the information together in a sensible kind of a way. So I may speed up and slow down, I may stop. So we start with the Hermit. So the Hermit's going to go on a journey. Now he happens to be looking this way, but I'm going to, in my mind, I went from left to right. So maybe we should do it this way, because the Hermit's looking to the left. So the Hermit represents somebody, they've isolated themselves, and they've thought so that they can think things through, and they're solitary, and they're alone but not lonely, and they're wise, and they've got a message because they've got a light that can be wanting to teach other people or show other people the way to go. And he's on top of a mountain, it looks like, so he has elevated himself or made an effort to climb high, which can mean that he wants to understand what's going on, or he wants to be in a higher position so that he can have a better view around him, to get an overview of what's going on in his life, in her life, in life period. Okay, so you're on your own here, and step one is the Wheel of Fortune. So somehow, the Wheel of Fortune is that life going round, and here we're isolated. So maybe step one is to leave the isolation behind and emerge into the world. And so here we've got slowness and peace and quiet. Here we've got movement and pace and change and cyclic activity and going up and down, and things going well and things going badly, and unexpected events. Whereas here it's more contemplative, it seems, and more relaxed and more, let's take our time and see how things go. Here with the Wheel of Fortune, on the other hand, you have to be on your toes probably to keep in touch, or to keep going, or to keep in harmony or in tune with the reality of the world, which is kind of the Wheel of Fortune. So this is like a contrast. Then I'm using the old method where 8 is Saturn, and 8 is the Justice card, and 11 is Strength. Okay, so somehow with the Strength card here, this is a bit like going back to here. So the Hermit emerges into the world, and step number one after that is a bit of peace and quiet here, because the woman closing the lion's mouth can be, and we've got a lion here. Is that a lion? Yeah. So somehow maybe the magician's first instinct, okay, I know I've got to go into the world, but I really want to get back to where I was, because somehow the Hermit and the Strength card are kind of similar in that there's peace and quiet and tranquility and seeking harmony and seeking eternal movement, and I don't know what there, but also closing the lion's mouth. The lions can represent the lion can represent animal instincts or violence, or only because lions hunt, you know what I mean? And so that kind of primitive, not that lions are primitive, but that kind of animalistic, an eye for an eye, a tooth, what is it? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, I can't remember. Anyway, so somehow it looks like the first instinct of the hermit here is to go back to where he was. But the Hanged Man is the next card. He realizes, okay, I can step back into the cave, but nothing's going to happen because the Hanged Man is suspended and nothing's happening. So on the one hand, I can stay with that and do nothing, or maybe it's time to emerge into the world, have a brand new start. So maybe the hermit at this point, having put his toe into the water, wanted to go back to where he was comfortable, and realized that not a lot's going to happen there. It's time to go back into the world. And this is a death card. And a few days ago, I had this thought, death is God's karma, whatever that might mean. Okay, so if the hermit emerges back into the world and deals with endings and beginnings, the end of the isolation that he experienced and the beginning of getting involved with people, then he is able, if you temper metal, you burn off impurities, right? And the metal becomes strong. So by re-entering the world here and leaving behind self-preservation maybe, or isolation, he gets to become strong through temperance, through a little bit of pain, a little bit of sorrow, but nevertheless you end up being more knowledgeable, more wise and stronger. And in a way, this wisdom of temperance is better or more wise than the wisdom of the hermit, because this person knows what they're about because they've been involved in the world, whereas the hermit might be lacking in some way because he's maybe too isolated. There's an expression about an ivory tower. The hermit's maybe in an ivory tower, whereas the temperance card isn't so. We're now we're in the process of becoming strong. And then next step is the devil. So in order to become strong, you need to know where you're weak. And this can be what the devil does. It shows you where you're weak or where you need to do some work. And once you know where to do some work, it's tough because there's destruction, and you've got to leave stuff behind because it doesn't work or because it's a mess. And this is what you get with the Tower card. But if you can come through that facing reality or facing things falling apart or not being eternally complete, then you are inspired. You've got the chance to be inspired, and you've got the chance to find or discover or to recognize eternal truth or things that are will motivate you to be the best that you can be. Something like that with the star. Then you can be like the crayfish. You can emerge from one environment, the water, onto the land. You can transform yourself from one kind of understanding into a new one that's solitary still, because the crayfish is on its own. He has to ignore the dog and the wolf, right? So with the moon card, there's a certain amount of self-isolation, which can remind you of the hermit isolating himself. But with change from one environment to the next one, you've got the sun. So instead of you or the crayfish having to walk along the land, you're on a horse. You're transported. You don't have to do the work. You will find that circumstances or life itself will transport you, like being on the crest of a wave. So you're carried along, and that means you are inspired, that you were in the dark and the hermit's in the dark, but now you're emerging from the coffin into the light because you've not just heard the angel calling here in the star card, but there's a more direct connection with inspiration in the Judgment card, which means the world. It means you know what's going on, or I can't remember what I thought, but at this point, but you emerge into the world properly, but you understand what's going on differently from the Wheel of Fortune back here. That was step number 1. It's the same kind of idea, a circle with the animals around it. Here we've got the animals around it, but it's changed. The primitive or abstract kind of understanding here is now more realistic, which means that you can now step through the ellipse into a new beginning where you're still on your own, but it's okay because you've got a dog with you. And dog spelt backwards is G-O-D. You've got God with you, but you're bigger than God. So God will help you, but you're the one doing the work, which means you become a magician, become powerful and strong and creative and imaginative. But I'm rushing only because I don't know if the battery is going to last. Okay, but you're strong, but you need a little bit of patience and you need a little bit of femininity to settle you down so that you don't go crazy and do stupid things, because the magician can be too powerful and too over the top. But with a little bit of tempering, and tempering can be, take us back to the temperance card, where it's moderation, if you remember the temperance movement. So somehow the high priestess will bring a sense of balance or a sense of reality to the great creativity of the magician, which means that I can't remember what I thought, the connection between the high priestess and or maybe it has to do with the magician and the high priestess are kind of high level, but the empress is more down to earth and realistic and friendly and sociable. In a way, too, the high priestess and the hermit seem kind of connected, because there's a certain amount of isolation with the high priestess, but there's wisdom, and there's wisdom here. So maybe the hermit recognizes himself or herself in the high priestess, but he's got to come back into the world and deal with people, actual living people. And it's not enough to be all-knowing and all-wise and so on. You've still got to get along with people. And that's what the Empress teaches him or her to do. And I can't remember what I thought for the Emperor, but we've got the Empress here, who is social activity. And maybe when you're the Empress, you realize you have a certain responsibility to people, and to you need to set a good example. This is not very satisfactory for me at the moment, because I can't remember what I thought for the Emperor, but it's followed by the Hierophant. So at some point, maybe the Emperor realizes it's not enough to be powerful. You also have to pass on knowledge to other people. So the Hermit is on his own and standing up there with a message, but the Emperor is more realistic and down to earth. And so the Hierophant, because the Hierophant used to be the person who helped people in the early stages of something, and that can be what the Emperor realizes he needs to do. It's not enough just to be rich and famous. You also have to do good works and do good stuff for the world. Which gets us to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which means you enter paradise, the Garden of Eden, because that's where Adam and Eve are, and you're in good shape. But then you can't stay there. And it's a bit like if you've ever been inspired or had a moment of inspiration or a breakthrough moment, an aha moment they talk about, you know you can't stay there. You've got to come back. You've got to leave it behind. You know you had that moment of insight or that great feeling of at one with the world. Let's say you see a beautiful sunset and for a moment you think, wow, this is incredible. Look at that sunset. But it doesn't last. And we can't hold on to perfection. We've got to come back into the world and travel and move around. And then, can't remember what I was going to do with Judgement, with the Justice card rather. So, so if we're going to travel, we need discipline. We can't just travel, or there's not much point in traveling aimlessly. You need boundaries. You need to know how far you're going to go, and then you're going to reconsider, rather than just travel aimlessly. So that's what I thought, kind of, for the Hermit's journey. So I'll leave that with you. You can make of it what you will, but why don't you try your own? I mean, I gave you one quick version of what might be going on with the Hermit as he moves through the major trumps. What would you do if you were? What sense would you make of the Hermit? Because it's going to give you ideas about meanings of individual major trumps, but also you'll see connections between different cards, and you'll see similarities, and you'll see differences between them as well. And it's gradually, or it's giving you a broader understanding of any particular card, which means that when the card comes up in any reading, you're going to have more to say because you know more about it. Excuse me. That's it for today. Today's Sunday, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Back on Wednesday with something else. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend. Okay, bye-bye.